Today I'm sharing a strategy that has been used by ultra high net worth families for a long time, but only recently has become much more accessible to the everyday investor. And I'm so grateful to those folks today for letting us borrow it to talk about it. But today I'm sharing some of the benefits of direct indexing. I'm going to talk about how it works. I'm going to talk about who it might be ideal for. I'll share some of the downsides, of course, of direct indexing because it's certainly not for everyone. But I want you to be aware of it because if you do have a brokerage account, right, if you do have a taxable account outside of your retirement accounts, this is something that's helpful to know. What direct indexing allows you to do is help manage your taxes over time while growing your portfolio. So anytime we talk about saving taxes, I'm all for it, and I'm sure you might be as well. So direct indexing is simply put buying the single stocks of an index rather than buying the fund that then tracks an index. So as you may know, you can't outright own an index. You can't own the S&P 500. You can't own the NASDAQ. What you have to do is invest in a mutual fund or an ETF that then tracks it, right? So if you were to open the S&P 500 and look at its holdings, you'll see that each holding is 7%, 6%, right? There's different weightings of these companies that are within the S&P 500, such as Apple, Google, Tesla, Amazon, right? These are the 500 best companies in America, and they're all held by these ETFs and mutual funds. So what we're doing with direct indexing is essentially we're unpacking those, right? Rather than owning the index, rather than owning the fund that tracks that index, we're owning all of these on a single stock basis, and we're still tracking the index, right? So we're still using the same weighting, 7%, 6%, right? We're still just doing the exact same thing that the ETF is doing, but we're doing it on a single stock basis. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's kind of strange. Why would you do that? I've always heard it's much more risky to own a stock when I own it on a single stock basis rather than owning the ETF. And that's only true when you're seeking performance, okay? So it is much more risky, of course, to own any single one position than owning an ETF simply just by the principle of diversification. But when we talk about direct indexing, what we're doing is we're looking for the tax benefit, not the outperformance benefit. So that's the first thing. The reason why that direct indexing can be helpful for the right person is because of what's known as tax loss harvesting. So as you know, or as you might know, when it comes to your brokerage account, what you can do is you can offset your gains with your losses. So let me just give you an example. Elon Musk says something ridiculous, right? And he's never done that before, so I'm sure that's hard for you to imagine. But Elon says something crazy, and Tesla does very poorly for the day. And on the other side, Tim Cook says something really cool. He says something that they're gonna announce their 94th iPhone, and Apple stock does really well for the day. Well, what you can do with direct indexing, or what you can do in your brokerage account, is you can sell a loser, and then you can also sell a winner, and they can offset each other, right? So if I sold a $1,000 loss, I can sell a $1,000 gain and pay zero taxes because of it. And now what direct indexing is just doing that on a continual basis over time. The ultimate benefit, of course, is that if I want to move in and out of positions, that is a way to do that without having any tax loss or tax consequence because of it. But another kind of more in-depth benefit of doing this is you're continually raising your basis over time. So your basis is just the price that you paid for something. So if I paid $10 for Apple stock, the stock goes up to $15. My earnings portion, of course, represents that $5. That's what I'm going to be taxed on. And my basis is $10. My basis is what I paid for it. So in that example I just gave you, let's say I sold Apple for $15, and with a winner, I can turn around and buy it the next day. That's totally legal. And I can then have a higher basis. So then my future gains are going to be based off a higher basis, and therefore I'm going to have a lower capital gain sitting over my head, because I know that there's a lot of you out there that are sitting on very heavy gains, and some of them might even be from Apple itself. And the problem, I don't want to call it a problem whenever we have a massive gain, of course that's wonderful, but the problem is we know we owe a large portion of that to the government whenever we sell it. So tax loss harvesting is a way to minimize that tax consequence, and tax loss harvesting is going to be one of the main parts of direct indexing just on that ongoing basis. The only other thing I'll mention is direct indexing, of course, allows you that high degree of customization and control, right? So if I'm Using Whole Foods as an example, I know that I can either buy a packaged salad or I can go to the salad bar and customize whatever I put in my salad bowl. And in the same way, direct indexing allows you to do that. So if there's some companies that you absolutely want to exclude from your portfolio, this is a way to do that, but still get, of course, exposure to some of the best companies, of course, that track an index like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. But at the end of the day, I want you to know that there are some drawdowns here, okay? So the first drawdown is that this is a more expensive strategy to run than just owning SPY, VOO, IVV, QQQ, right? It's more expensive to run this strategy than just owning the fund itself. And you're hoping, of course, that the tax benefits from this far outweigh the cost, but that's something to be mindful of. The other piece is there are sometimes minimums to getting into direct indexing. As I mentioned, there's a lot of manpower, there's a lot of moving factors at play here. So a lot of times we use specific companies in order to help us direct index. As I mentioned at the start of the video, of course, this started with ultra high net worth families. And while it has become a lot more accessible, there's still certain minimums that might be applicable here. So 50,000, 100,000, some I've even seen at 250,000 is your starting point that you have to have within your brokerage account in order for a company to apply direct indexing for you. So that's really it. Okay, I intentionally hopefully kept this video a little bit short, but know when we talk about direct indexing, the overall goal is helping managing taxes as we grow our portfolio. We do so by offsetting our losses with our gains in order to help manage those taxes. And while it is technically for just about anyone, there can be minimums involved. And with that, it has to be within a brokerage account. Can't do this with your retirement account, and that's simply just because of the way taxes work when we compare a non-qualified account to a qualified account. Okay, and then the last piece, of course, is be mindful of fees. There's going to be more fees when we talk about direct indexing than just simply investing in a fund that mirrors the index in itself. So always have this conversation with your financial advisor before considering anything at all. Same goes for your tax professional. But direct indexing can be a powerful tool if it is managed properly and if it's for the right person. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But as always, I thank you very much for your viewership and I hope you have a wonderful day.